So now that Star Wars: The Bad Batch has ended, I would like to talk about how Star Wars TV shows have ended, namely the animated shows, because none of the live action shows have truly ended yet. But they have all ended differently. Let's talk about the very first animated Star Wars show. Well, that would have been either droids or Ewoks, but you know what? I've never watched them completely, so we're going to forget about them for the time being. And I don't even know if those have proper endings. But let's talk about the original 2D Star Wars Clone Wars micro series. That ended not too dissimilarly actually from, the beginning of the end for Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Anakin and Obi-Wan going off to save the Chancellor. Because the 2D micro series was focused solely on bridging the gap, giving large of us quick short stories that just shows the events. There's only really a few episodes that dealt with some character developments, and that was mostly around Anakin. But I really don't know how that. It's been a while since I watched the show, but the thing is, that series as a whole was just bridging gap. So of course they had to end with that way. But Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the next show that came out, actually had three endings. Of course they had three endings. When Disney bought Lucasfilm and Star Wars, it got canceled, so we only ended with season 5. But this ending was actually quite fitting. It was Ahsoka walking away from the Order after being wrongfully accused of bombing the Jedi Temple, and she goes off on her own, and we're left with Anakin distraught, and Yoda just shaking his head because he realized that Anakin still hasn't learned to let go of his attachments yet. But then the season 6, the episodes that were largely done were released on Netflix. I've actually still need to finish. I've watched all of them. In fact, little fun fact is they were released in German first, and somebody uploaded to YouTube. So I watched at least the with the five stories learning about the inhibitor chips and all that. I watched that with English subtitles, listening to the German dub on YouTube. So that's how I first watched them. But that's just a fun fact. I don't remember exactly how that ended. I'm pretty sure it was the Yoda stuff at the end, but again, it kind of ended not with a fitting conclusion. In fact, season 5 ended was, I think, a much stronger conclusion to the show as a whole, because sure, it doesn't lead directly into the events of episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It still set up that Anakin's on this dark path, and he has not learned to let go of his attachments, which does fit nicely then into Revenge of the Sith. Plus, I mean, we've been following Ahsoka for most of the show, one of the main characters, so it's also fitting to see, the end of her journey with the Jedi being the end of the show. But then, way after Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Resistance ended, we get the final ending of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. We got three arcs. We got the Bad Batch arc, which spun off into the Bad Batch, which I'll be talking about soon. We got, of course, the Ahsoka arc, which probably was the weakest but still vital. One arc caught up us on with Rex, the other caught us up on Ahsoka, and the last arc threw them together. And I think a big part of the Siege of Mandalore arc, which I think was the overall finale, is one, showing that the Jedi are still playing politics. Saving Palpatine is viewed by Ahsoka is basically playing politics rather than helping the people of Mandalore. So I do want to say, Coruscant was also under attack, not just Palpatine himself. I'm just saying. But the point being is, the political expediency of saving the Chancellor was valued more than stopping Darth Maul and criminal syndicates from controlling Mandalore. But Ahsoka does go there, and we get another scene of Order 66. But the key is, I think, is that was concluding those two characters' story in the Clone Wars, Rex and Ahsoka, who I would say are the two new characters introduced whose stories needed to end, or at least their Clone Wars stories, because they still had more stories to tell, as we saw later on. But what I'm getting there is, it ended on a very bittersweet note. In fact, the last scene was Darth Vader, not Anakin, Darth Vader, holding one of Ahsoka's lightsabers that he himself had fitted with and turned blue when he was still Anakin. The last remnant of himself and is there, and he leaves it behind when he leaves that Ventress crash scene. That's why that ending is so fitting, because of that scene. That flash forward scene is like Vader is looking at the last remnant of Anakin that he thinks is still around, or that he thinks is gone, and he leaves it behind. And it's not until he meets his son does he realize that Anakin is still in there. It takes a while, but Anakin does come out once again. Now, I don't think it's necessarily two people. I do think Anakin/Vader is more of like dissociative personality disorder, something like that. Still one person, but he can switch between which personality he prefers. Or more likely, maybe bipolar disorder, but we can have a actual psychologist talk about that some other time. And of course, we have Rebels, which I think has one of the best endings. In fact, Rebels, Bad Batch, and the Clone Wars, I do think have the best animated TV endings in all of Star Wars. That's a good amount, and some of the best endings in all of animated television as well. But Rebels ends with one, they save Rosar, and then we got flash forward, catching up on what every character has done, and set up Ahsoka and Sabine finding Ezra, which, well, that's going to be Star Wars Ahsoka, which we have not seen its series ending yet. Now, Resistance, I think, doesn't have the strongest ending, but it still has an ending nevertheless. It ends, basically, with... In fact, how did Resistance end? It's been such a long time, I forgot how it ended. But I know it ended on a good note for everyone in the crew. And that's all I really remember. I really need to rewatch Resistance. It's been quite some time. I think I might, and then maybe do a retrospective review. And then, of course, we get the Bad Batch, which also has a great ending with Omega heading off to fight for the rebellion against the Empire. And that's all the endings. Or is it? Because we also have Tales of the Jedi, which kind of had two different endings, and both of them are very different. One we have Count Dooku cementing himself as a Sith, and then the other we have Ahsoka stepping up and joining the rebellion. I don't know how Tales of the Empire is going to end, because guess what? I'm recording this before Tales of the Empire came out, so there's something a little bit trivial how long my production time can sometimes be for these videos. And then, of course, we also have the Young Jedi Adventures, which I've not also seen. I'm not sure how that has ended. Forces of Destiny, but those were not really... It is a series, but not, so don't remember how that ended. I still remember how Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures ended. Gotta rewatch some of those shows. And of the live-action shows, well, Book of Boba Fett was just one story. It ended with basically Boba cementing his rule on Tatooine. We have Mando, which, yes, the Mandalorian hasn't ended yet. And really, Book of Boba Fett was just an interlude in The Mandalorian. But the ending was fitting. Mando has his own little cottage to raise his adopted son. Which, you know what? Grogu is his son anyhow. Adopted doesn't matter. They're family. And that's a fitting ending if they never continue the story. Now, we are getting more Mando and Grogu stories, but the thing is that if it ended there, that would have been a fitting ending. They get a little cabin. Okay, I'm just going to say, little house on Navarro. Instead of little house on the prairie or little house in the big woods. But yeah, they got their little house and they're retired. Not really, but still. We also don't know how Star Wars Ahsoka is going to end yet as well. But you know what? Every Star Wars show has always ended on some kind of hopeful note. There's a reason why Tales of the Jedi put the Ahsoka episode at the end, the final Ahsoka episode, rather than the final Dooku episode, was because there's a hopeful note in Ahsoka's episode. Really, the micro series for Star Wars Clone Wars is probably the only exception to that, but even that was on a hopeful note. Our hero is going to rescue the day. That is a hopeful note. But every series, even those with a bittersweet ending, have some kind of hope in them. I mentioned with the Clone Wars, the actual final ending. Sure, it's that scene with Vader looking at the one remnant of his past as Anakin Skywalker, and that's not a hopeful note, but at the same time it is, because one, we saw Ahsoka and Rex had survived, but two, the thing is that a piece of Anakin was still out in the galaxies for Vader to find. He rejected it that time, but we, the audience, know there is more hope in the galaxy for Anakin to come back to the light. We know Luke and Leia, Obi-Wan are still out there, mostly Luke, but Leia probably could have fulfilled a similar role as well. Every show has always ended on some kind of hopeful note. Even the bittersweet endings have that gleam of hope in there. And Star Wars has always been about hope in some form. Even the darkest episode, Revenge of the Sith, the galaxy has been taken over by the Sith, ends with that hopeful note of Obi-Wan delivering Luke to his uncle and aunt to raise on Tatooine. and they're looking into a sunset, or is it a sunrise on the future of the galaxy? That thing is, there's always that hopeful note. The Last Jedi also ended on a vague downer note as well, but it was hopeful. You know, Leia told Rey that they can repair the lightsaber, that they can rebuild. Empire Strikes Back. Yes, the rebellion was dealt a crippling blow, but Luke got his new hand and they're looking at a protostar, a star being formed. No matter what, no matter how dark the ending of any episode of Star Wars is, any installment, especially once you finish the story, the episode doesn't really matter. There's always that hopeful, positive note, even in the darkest of times. But that is going to conclude my look at how every Star Wars series has ended, at least those that I can recall. But I would love to hear your thoughts on how Star Wars ends its stories in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me that there's always that hopeful, positive note, even in the midst of despair, sorrow, and tragedy? I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on my latest content. You can also stay up to date on my content by following me on social media. I have a link tree down in the description which has all my social media links on it. Additionally, if you would like to support the channel, you can become a channel member and get early access to all my videos. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you always.